P. I am pleased to welcome you to the British Society of Criminology Hate Crime Network podcast. Today's guest is Karen Becher, Head of Onsite Education from the National Holocaust Center and Museum. Before we start, I would like to briefly introduce our guest. Karen joined the National Holocaust Center and Museum in 2014, where she is the head of on-site education and works in Holocaust education, teaching to primary and secondary students, university students, and adult groups. Karen has played a substantial role in developing the center's Breaking the Cycle program. Passionate about Holocaust education and its relevance to society today, Karen is dedicated to this field. Karen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Irene, and thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Can you please tell us about the National Holocaust Center and Museum, when and why it was set up, and also what are the aims of the center?
Yes, pleasure to do so. The National Holocaust Center and Museum, it has been around since 1995. It was originally known as Bet Shalom meaning House of Peace. But then we became a national museum, and we were founded by a Christian family from the region where we are. We're out here in the beautiful hills surrounding Nottingham. In the village of Laxton, so not very far, half hour's drive, and from Nottingham. And the Smith family, who founded this center, what's really unique. They're a devout Christian family. They were there's Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, and their two sons, Stephen and James. And Mr. Smith, he's a retired Methodist vicar. Mrs. Smith, she taught religious studies, so as I said, they are a Christian family. And to make, I won't go into all the detail, but this family, they took, I'd say one of the turning moments in their life probably would have been around 1991. They had more than one trip to Israel where they visited many different sites, back then often referred to as visiting the Holy Land. I think that was the intention originally. And they, amongst many things they visited, went to Jerusalem, visited Yad Vashem, and Yad Vashem, the memorial to the victims of the Holocaust and museum, the most powerful experience, definitely for anyone who will visit there. Well, it wasn't any different for the Smiths. It led to, in particular, Stephen and James, just with loads of questions as young teenagers asking, it just an amazing impact that, like I said, that's certainly on me as well when I've visited there, and asking their parents questions. Why are we not learning about this in such detail? Why haven't we learned about the Holocaust in school? It was not on the national curriculum at the time. They were in school. And so that was a big question for them, which stayed with them as they went into university and went off to pursue their studies. Stephen, I believe, studied theology, and James became a medical doctor. But even through all that time, it was always with them, something that they wanted to somehow help here in Britain. There was no Holocaust museum or learning center at that time. This is at the time when the Holocaust galleries of IWM would have been slowly coming into existence and things like that. And so that was always somehow in their subconscious, this is something we must do. And it became not just subconscious, but really very consciously, we must do this. So that's really what happened. By the time we get to 1995, amazing support from many people. Here where I'm sitting, I'm in the old farmhouse where the family actually lived here, I'd say, for about 20 years. And little by little, fixing up various pieces. The house was turned into parts of not the whole house, of course, but like a Bible study center originally. But that's eventually Stephen and James asking their parents, could we have a couple rooms in the house, maybe to have a library for people living in the region where they can come and get information about the Holocaust, do some reading, do some learning, and get to know us, that kind of thing. And out of that, of course, eventually comes what becomes a charity, as we are. We are now a charity for the last 27 and a half years and going very strong. We have thousands of students. What do I want to say? Including, I'm just talking about on-site at the moment, somewhere around 25,000 students will visit us. That's primary school age, secondary school age, and then university students as well as our massively growing outreach program. We have on-site going into schools, or as we all know, as we all are living every day still as a result of COVID-19, doing lots of online sessions in schools, doing it all online, taking our programs. We have 2 exhibitions, which I think I'll be telling you more about shortly. And so anyway, that's a little bit about us. But then to get into what we do, what are our aims, what are our objectives? That's the other part of your question. We aim to communicate the Holocaust for the following purposes. To critical thinking, of course, is something we want to help to get people thinking that way. To question misinformation and stereotypes. And anti-Semitism, of course, and the fact that for millennia it has been around. It's not something that's a recent development. Its long existence and the othering of Jewish people that still goes on to this day, as well as using that with our expertise in teaching and helping people to learn about the Holocaust, using that to with the aim to use it to deconstruct all types of misinformation and discrimination, etc. So it's really about, at the end of the day, all discrimination, not just anti-Semitism. Yeah, I think that's pretty complete there. That's I could go on, but I won't, because I think it gets it down.
Thank you. You did mention the permanent exhibitions, the Journey exhibition, and also the Holocaust exhibition, as well as the memorial gardens. Can you please provide us with a brief synopsis of these exhibitions?
Of course, the original exhibition, 1995, that's our Holocaust exhibition, where for those listening who perhaps visited the IWM's earlier Holocaust galleries, well, you'd see very much, they did an amazing job here, the Smiths. They did an amazing job of really covering all aspects of the Holocaust, including, the build-up, not just Nazi Germany, but examples of anti-Semitism in medieval times, to give one example, and also a little bit of that exhibition also has, it doesn't just end in 1945, but has this element of continuing, this determination of Holocaust survivors to speak out and speak up, some sooner than others. And also to end, though, at a positive light, to show that there are examples of people who did stand up, who did help, although not very, if you look at the mass of things, the scale of things, of course, if more had done so, but that's a huge discussion, the difference that could have made. So that's our key. That is an exhibition that is intended for like age 13 and older. And then came our Journey exhibition. The Journey exhibition has been around since 2008. The Journey exhibition, I will stress, it is an exhibition for all age groups. And it is a very unique, I'd say, it's certainly in Europe, it is a one of a kind, the Journey. It was at a time in the early noughties when there was a lot of discussion. To what extent can we teach about the Holocaust to primary school children? Because they are major visitors of that exhibition. However, it is brilliant. The feedback from all age groups is amazing. So that exhibition looks instead of talking about a large group, the 6 million victims, we're looking through the eyes of a 10-year-old boy named Leo Stein, and he is a Jewish child living in Berlin with his mom and his dad and his little sister. And so with diary clips and also in a little book of a diary, which with everything taking place in 1938, we're following the changes taking place in particular the year 1938, but it is an educational program that is intended to investigate and consider and think critically about what is changing in Germany, the impact on someone, in this case, the Jewish Germans, and stressing they're Jewish, yes, but they're also German. They're German citizens, like all other people in this country. For the majority of them, they're German citizens. They're born there, their mother tongue is German, etc. And using that to then explore through Leo's eyes how he's made to feel just because he's Jewish. His parents, so it's all encompassing all Jewish people, and through the laws, the restrictions, but also education during the Nazi era, and how that is very unique. Neither was it that way before nor after the Nazis in Germany. So key themes, I will say, certainly anti-Semitism and its impact on the Jewish community of Germany. But also linking to today, because Leo goes off on the Kindertransport program, a refugee program, just children and unique to Britain. So that is really key in this exhibition. It's an example right here in Britain that did make a difference and save the lives of at least Jewish children, mostly Jewish children. But also the relevance to the refugee experience today, that this is still going on, other victim groups as well in contemporary times. It's the contemporary with everything we do that also is incredibly important, making sure we link things to today through looking into the past. Yeah, it's an amazing exhibition. I think people's minds were settled who were a little worried about what we're doing with primary school children. The IRA guidelines we follow very, very strictly. And as far as children primary school age go, we would never speak about camps, gas chambers, all of these things that are happening once the Second World War begins is in no way a part of that program. And it's very tactile, almost text-free exhibition. So.
To mention the memorial gardens, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm going. I almost forgot there. Our memorial gardens. There's no visit is complete to the center without having visited our memorial gardens. Now, I've seen photographs from our archives, as this is farmland out here, and this house was surrounded by flat fields. It's amazing how it's been landscaped. A beautifully landscaped environment with a pond, with well over 1,000, about 1,300 white rose bushes, intended, along with memorials to various victim groups of the Holocaust, intended for a place to reflect, knowing, that this is not a pleasant topic to spend perhaps 3-4 hours on as a visitor to the center, 4 hours on average, I'd say. It's not a pleasant experience to have a place where people can remember, reflect, think about the relevance in their own lives, perhaps, and why this matters today. So those rose bushes, it's just gorgeous. They're just starting to come to life again. We don't have the white roses out yet, but you come in 2 months' time and they'll be in full bloom. And each has a dedication plaque to remember. It could be an individual. They're dedications made by Holocaust survivors, as well as could be a school group. We have school groups come, or just members of the public. They're very, very powerful to remember a person or even a whole community in many, many different, some of them very, very personal, in particular from the survivors. And lastly, I do want to say, I don't want to leave that out, at the core of everything we do, everything I've just described so far, It's at the core of all of this are Holocaust survivors' testimonies. We have a large community of survivors. They are really the most important thing here. I've learned so much from them. We all have, and how they've dedicated their time as voluntarily to speak to as many people as possible of all different ages, and are sharing, of course, things that are absolutely incredibly personal, incredibly painful, and their resilience and determination to see to it that people learn from this, that it helps for the future, is really, really what it's about. And some of them have, very lastly, about the gardens, some of them have placed memorials out there that they have commissioned to remember their own experience. For example, a man named Simon, who was in hiding with his mother and father and brother for 2 whole years. And it was through the help of people that hid them and fed them and kept them safe. Miraculously, the whole family survived. But Simon has a very specific memory from a child's point of view of hiding and thinking that's normal, that life is normal, that's home, to be in hiding. He commissioned a sculpture called Hidden Childhood that's out in the gardens. And it's quite powerful. With him, he's there with his brother. So it's just to give you one example of the types of things you'd see in our gardens.
Thank you. And on the point of Holocaust survivor testimonies, I think is the Forever project. Right. Holocaust survivors have always been, as you said, the cornerstone of the center's exhibitions, the learning programs. Why are these testimonies so important? And what will we do when there are no more Holocaust survivors left to talk to? Yeah. How can we keep their voices alive?
Right. Well, just to answer the first bit about why there's the testimonies themselves so important, it's, again, when we speak about a mass victim group, in this case, 6 million Jewish people who were murdered, that's an incredible number. And just looking upon them as just a number. And the testimony, it has many different purposes. First of all, it's about an individual's experience. It's about identity. It's about learning through someone else's experience with real detail. I've been there. This is true, and I want to share that with you. And I think there's been a lot of research into that, and always going on, how the impact of testimony. I know in my own project work here at the center, I see it all the time with feedback surveys, and how it's Holocaust survivor testimony that has the greatest impact. You know, of the different resources we've used today, just or going into the exhibition itself. The exhibition is incredibly important, going into an exhibition, but it's always that survivor testimony that I've never seen it not number one. That has the greatest impact. So how do we keep that momentum alive? As it is a fact that's the average age of survivors speaking here at the center, maybe around 88 or so, maybe even up to 89. There are a couple individuals who were born are a little bit younger, but not too much, as we know when the war ended. And in any case, the testimony, we know the impact. What do we do when we do not have? And that is, it's not something that we're just thinking about for the first time. We've been thinking about this for years. It's been going on actively through our, as one example, the Forever project, which it's an interactive experience where you can not only watch a survivor talk, but you also can have a question and answer session with that survivor that you're listening to the talk to. I've done some of these interviews myself, and this goes back quite a few years, 2015, 16, where we initially, I remember sitting when we had a survivor talk in our auditorium here, and would write down every single question that the audience would ask. And so that was really the preparation work for the Forever project. These are very highly professional filmings done in a studio, and it's not just for a couple hours. We're talking about 5 days from, say, 9 in the morning till 6 in the evening, with a Holocaust survivor, answering thousands of questions, and also having the opportunity to just in one go share their testimony, maybe speaking for an hour, in some cases 1.5 hours. But you can ask these questions. It's in essence a giant software program that gives you, and it's a life-sized original. You'll see on the screen. We have an online version we're working on, and so we're exploring other ways we can use this, but it has been used quite a bit. We use it in our programs or with adult audiences from time to time. So it's an ongoing thing that will be in the mix of testimony, how we keep testimony alive. There are other things being done, like second generation. I've attended a number of talks with the children of Holocaust survivors, sharing their parents' story. I've seen, but they also bring into that the long-term impact on them growing up as the child of a Holocaust survivor, which is incredibly interesting I think for many purposes. With the again, we have refugee experiences in the world today, but it's an interesting one that we are exploring. I don't know to what extent. I haven't heard that we'll be doing that in current times, but it is something out there. Of course, we work closely together, collaborating with many other organizations. I know that this is being done. So that's another way, but we're constantly on the search of exploring other ways, and we need to keep their voices alive. Survivors, we owe that to them for what the time they've dedicated, but to the world as well. This is a unique example of the Holocaust that we really need to be keeping that alive for contemporary purposes.
Absolutely. I appreciate that the National Holocaust Center and Museum address prejudicial behavior through breaking the cycle. Can you tell us a bit more about this intervention tool and why it's important?
Yeah, the Breaking the Cycle program, that's something I've been a part of pretty early on when I began working here. It's a learning program, but it's a referral program. I think it was sparked, it's a little bit before my time, but it was sparked, I think, in part through having conferences with police in Nottinghamshire and trying to address growing hate crime, as hate crime was becoming more of a topic. People gradually hearing more about it in the media and what the strands of hate crime and all of that type of thing. And we got talking and wondering, is there a way that we could use Holocaust education in this addressing, in other words, contemporary examples of hate crime? And I have to stress that the core of everything we do is Holocaust education. So for this program to work, we certainly do need to be quite attentive to that and using our expertise in hopes that it will help to reduce hate crime and recidivism of continued with people that are referred engaging in certain forms of hate, anti-Semitism, and right-wing views and actions, of course, come up as one of the issues that's always going to be there. I've had some many times, but let me tell you more about the program. The aim of the program, I did say it seeks to reduce reoffending through educating youth to understand the effect that social intolerance has on its victims. But through reflection, it's not about lecturing to the people who participate in this program. It comes about from, like I said, a referral program that deals with youth who maybe have been in trouble in school, maybe bullying issues, expressing hateful or comments or hateful acts against an individual because of their identity, something unique to them. And so it could be teachers or schools that are making referrals. It could also be schools officers, the police that are working in the schools, and as well as Prevent. We do have, we work with Prevent as well, who will, at a more serious, where there is really an even more serious concern, who will be referred to this program. And so we want to, through this program, help to reduce reoffending through educating youth to understand the effect, as I said, about social intolerance on its victims. And through reflection, the participants, they'll gain awareness, we hope, that's what we aim, of how their actions can affect others. And the aim is that perpetrators develop a greater understanding and acceptance of diversity. It's a program that the best is doing it here on site. We've tried to do this off-site, and that is where our exhibitions are incredibly important to visit, in particular, the Journey exhibition, because we're looking in Germany at pre-war Jewish life in that exhibition with examples of bullying, discrimination, and outright hate just because these people are Jewish, and ignoring the fact that they are citizens of that country. They have actually the same rights as you do. And that all of that is being just taken away in many different ways. Of course, in Nazi Germany, we're talking not just through the use of propaganda and other means, or people feeling comfortable in expressing their prejudices, because it's actually encouraged in many different ways, but it's also laws. They're making it legal and okay to do this. And so we do put that in there, that this is where things can head if you have these two things combined. We're not trying to say youth are going to go out and engage in some form of genocide. That's not what's going on here, but just showing then through the full picture of education where this can lead, and as you see it in Nazi Germany back then. So it is about conversation. It's not really, when I say education, through conversation, making people, everyone here is welcome. I always stress that in this program. It is a place where you are welcome and comfortable. It's a safe place where you should feel free to open up and just have a conversation. It's confidential, absolutely confidential, and it is a place where you can just ask questions. We're not telling you what to do. We're not lecturing and not judging. Absolutely not judging anyone. That's not what we're here for. We are educators. We're not police. We don't have anything to do with the law, etc. And I find through, as we get more and more into the conversation, and we do a little bit of a myth-busting exercise about different things going on with the use of propaganda, of the past, but also more current ways of spreading propaganda, and social media playing a massive role now. It gets greater and greater and greater, that's usually it's a real icebreaker as well to do in conversation, a myth busting exercise. It's very visual and involves a lot of discussion, and that's kind of just to give you a little glimpse into what. And the culmination of this is really, again, like everything else, Holocaust survivor testimony. And that's an intense one. I have to say, for youth, unless the police have said this is a part of your, I'm not sure legally what that's called, where it's expected, you've been maybe to a court and the court orders you to come to the center. These youth don't have to come. They could just say no. It is, of course, parental permission that is involved. We want the parents to come as well, and they're always welcome to come, but that doesn't always happen. For youth to actually come here that maybe doesn't have to, and then sit face to face, or sometimes via a platform online, and speak to a survivor, that's quite quite brave, I have to say. That's important. That's an important step in itself. And that is, again, like with everything else, the testimony has a massive impact. We are exploring using our Forever project as well for that, which has had indeed positive feedback as well. But that's an ongoing program that's been underway since 2000, really properly underway since 2014. And it's used between the ages of, let's say, 11 to 17, sometimes as young as 10-year-old. But that's not the end of breaking the cycle. For the past year, I had been approached by police. What about something that could be used for adults? And I piloted that last year with Nottinghamshire Police, and a big thank you to the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office for having supported that. And that was the initial test. Do something, adapt this program for adults, and we did a very small sample. It was so new. We didn't have a lot of time. I'd say it was about 12 referrals. And it was very encouraging. It was quite an experience, I have to say. It's a different world, a different level. And looking at the fact that some people have maybe for years had certain views, discriminatory, racially related issues are often there with everyone. That's one of the reasons of referring often, but there are other things as well. And the feedback was great. We got continued funding from the PCC's office to develop it more, get real proper academic independent evaluation, and really put in this academic rigor into this program. And that will continue until March 2025. We've gotten funding from now until then. And so I'm really keen to see what kind of evaluation will come out, in hopes that this will become a program that we could roll out to anyone who wants it out there. So
this is fantastic, and funding is so important, because otherwise it would be difficult to be able to offer the Breaking the Cycle program. On that point, in terms of rolling the program nationally and maybe to other groups, with the current rise of the far right and hate crime more generally in the UK and globally, online and also in person, anti-Semitism in Nazi Germany in the 1930s does not seem to be a history lesson, but a life lesson. What else do you feel needs to be done to tackle this problem? Whether it's policy, practice, research, programs like Breaking the Cycle?
Oh, that's such a massive question, and so important. When I look, well, certainly I think we need to increase education about, make that right in mainstream education, just being aware of the fact of what, in an educationally friendly way, but what hate crime actually is. I'm not so sure. I often wondered, are people really aware of what that is, and how that actually ties to the law and to all kinds of a variety of offenses, and what the purpose is of hate crime. I think that's important that people understand what that is, and that's because they could themselves be a victim of it and maybe not understand. Actually, I can get help. I can talk about this to someone. If we know about these things, I think that's important for decision makers, lawmakers. That's why when working with the police and hearing from them the monthly reports and statistics of various strands of hate crime and what's going on in communities. But on another note, research into the effects of social media. I'm really keen on, my generation. We found out things in a completely different way, in a slower way. But research into the effects of social media on influencing others and use it as a cause of of people suffering, through that social media, what is being shared about them, perhaps, about, so the impact on people, the suffering, the humiliation, isolation, and all of these things, and the potential dangers to personal well-being. I think this needs to be addressed more seriously. I know there are things being done by lawmakers, but they need to act a little faster. That's me as speaking as just an individual here. I just from what I see and in this Breaking the Cycle program, I just think that's so important, and how some people who have reformed or formers in hate crime and other crimes would even say, with taking a step by themselves. I was really in an echo chamber I didn't it was impossible at a certain point in my life to get out of this, but I somehow had it, or some kind of miracle moment in the case of some of them happened. But that needs to be, what are we doing without being controlling of the freedom of speech? I know that is absolutely important. I stand 100% for freedom of speech, but where's the cutoff point? I think some serious research should be done that is of a massive nature, that is put in front of lawmakers to regulate what we're doing, especially now with also this AI and what's going on. I read lots of things in the headlines about the influence of AI and whether or not we need to have a framework there before it gets even more sophisticated and grows and grows and grows. These issues need to be addressed, especially with technology. It's such an important part of our lives. And especially, as we have fewer and fewer Holocaust survivors alive. Because what does all of this matter with Holocaust education? It's another reason why we need to get these things somehow refined and really help through education, but education not necessarily in just the traditional means of education, and not forget adults, youth. I can go on and on about a Breaking the Cycle program, but youth are influenced, we all are, by the adults in our lives, the experiences we have growing up, and adults cannot be left out of any form of education. It's just absolutely essential and good for all of us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Karen, for a very informative podcast on the National Holocaust Center and Museum. But also, I would like to thank you for your excellent work. Anyone that has visited the center will say that it's a life-changing experience. And I would like to thank you for being part of that, changing people's lives.
Thank you very much. It's an honor, and it means a lot to me. I've learned so much here through the Smiths and through colleagues and so many amazing people I meet that come through our doors. People like yourselves, by the way. And thank you for this opportunity. It's been a real pleasure.
Is there anything else that you would like to add and I didn't ask you?
Not that I can think of at this stage. No, not really. But yeah, just thanks again. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay.